In the headlines, President Park Geun-hye stresses the urgency of resolving a long-standing historical issue between Korea and Japan as she welcomes a visiting Japanese lawmaker. The opposition party's resistance to President Park Geun-hye's new pick for a prime minister does not let up. It proposes another way of deciding on the nominee that could further delay a cabinet reshuffle. And another source of the Korean wave, we check in on TV drama directors from overseas who are looking to Korea as a source of inspiration. Welcome to the program. You're watching Primetime News live from Seoul. I am Kang Chery.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We begin with President Park Geun-hye's appeal to Japan to resolve Tokyo's wartime system of sexual slavery. With only 53 Korean victims still living, time is becoming more of a top concern.
That's right. And Mr. President Park Geun-hye relayed these thoughts this Friday while welcoming a visiting Japanese lawmaker. But as our Chery reports, Tokyo's twofold position on this matter may continue to hamper efforts to improve Seoul-Tokyo ties.
At a meeting with Japanese ruling party lawmaker Toshihiro Nikai, President Park said finding a way to rightfully compensate the victims would be the very first step for Korea and Japan to improve their relations. The lawmaker, in response, said it would only be appropriate to resolve the issue while the victims were still alive, and that he will join efforts in his country to bring a solution. Nikai, who is the chairman of his party's general council, then delivered a letter from Prime Minister Shinzo Abe suggesting Seoul and Tokyo work together to thaw relations, marking the 50th anniversary of their normalized ties this year. There's speculation, however, that Abe may deny that sex slaves were coerced into military brothels in his message marking the 70th anniversary of Japan's defeat in World War II later this year. One of the Prime Minister's aides had said the Kono statement, which acknowledges the women were forced into prostitution, will be nullified after Abe's upcoming statement. The dovish members within Japan's ruling party argue the contents of the statement must be thoroughly discussed by the party. In line with this, President Park on Friday said she agrees with Chairman Nikai's position that Prime Minister Abe should take into account ideas and opinions from all corners of society in preparing his message. On the non-political aspects of bilateral ties, however, President Park asked Nikai to continue his work on expanding people-to-people exchanges as the head of Japan's National Tourism Association. Choi Yusun, Arirang News.
Prime Minister nominee Lee Wan-gu has been facing strong resistance from the main opposition party. And what's new today is that the party has another proposal regarding his confirmation a day after the two parties agreed to delay the vote yesterday. Our Park Ji-won fills us in.
The leader of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party has a fresh proposal regarding the confirmation of Prime Minister nominee Lee Wan-gu.
Our party proposes the presidential office and the ruling party conduct a joint public opinion poll. Our party is ready to accept the result.
Speaking at the party's Supreme Council meeting on Friday morning, the former presidential candidate added that his party is facing a difficult situation. He said the Liberal Party doesn't want to cause a vacuum in state affairs, but given the allegations surrounding his past, the nominee does not have the qualifications to be prime minister. Moon urged the nominee to think deeply about what he can do to not burden the president, hinting to Lee that he could choose to withdraw voluntarily. In response, ruling Saenuri Party floor leader Yoo Seung-min said it was regrettable that the opposition party had changed a mutually agreed plan overnight.
It is very regrettable that the chairman of the main opposition party will make such a change in just a day.
Yoo reiterated that the rival parties had agreed Thursday to push the vote back until Monday and stressed that his party will go ahead with the vote on Monday as planned. The Conservative Party leader added that approval of the Prime Minister nominee is the Assembly's constitutional right, and Moon's offer goes against the principle of separation of powers. Meanwhile, a new Gallup poll shows about 4 out of 10 Korean people think Lee is an inappropriate candidate for the Prime Minister post. The survey was conducted on over 1,000 people nationwide from Tuesday to Thursday, a period that includes a 2-day confirmation hearing process. The mounting allegations surrounding Lee, from real estate speculation to his and his son's military service record, and his remarks about wielding power over the media, all contributed to his fall from grace in the eyes of the public, possibly jeopardizing his chances at the nation's second highest position. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Palestine will become an official member of the International Criminal Court on April 1st, seeking justice from last summer's 50-day violence in Gaza. Our Hwang Sung-hee sat down with the Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki for an exclusive interview on what the ICC membership means to Palestine.
We are seeking, partial, proportional kind of justice. Yes, we have suffered a lot since the Israeli occupation that have really started in 1967. And if justice and investigation by the ICC will also include what Palestinians have done in the latest Israeli aggression, well, we are ready to receive that investigation and also to respond to that investigation. We have nothing really to hide, and we are seeking justice, even if that means we have to pay a certain price.
But the United States said it will cut off aid to Palestine if it joins ICC. Aren't you worried?
We are worried, absolutely. We are worried because we receive almost $450 million a year in terms of aid from the United States to Palestinian economy and infrastructure. But unfortunately, the United States opposition to our accession is due to the fact that the United States believes that such accession might really undermine the image of the State of Israel. If Israel didn't do anything in violation of international law, and if Israel believes that it didn't commit any crime against the Palestinian people, why Israel or the United States of America are afraid from us being member of the International Criminal Court?
At this point, is Palestine willing to talk things out with Israel?
We have tried through U.S. intermediary to be able to find a solution to the conflict through 9 months negotiations, which has really failed due to the intransigence on the Israeli side. The question is Israel ready to re-engage again? And I will tell you that Israel is not ready, and we have to wait until after elections to see if there is any partner on the Israeli side who's willing really to engage in serious negotiations that will put an end to Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories and will allow the establishment of an independent Palestinian state that will live side by side with the State of Israel.
Has the unity government with Hamas come to an end?
Well, no, it didn't come to an end yet. Yes, I admit we have so many obstacles. Yes, I admit that Hamas is not collaborating enough in order really to see that the government takes full responsibility in Gaza. For that purpose, the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is going to dispatch this week a high-level delegation of the PLO to Gaza to enter into discussions with Hamas in order for the Palestinian government to be able to work fully and responsibly, in Gaza, and to provide the type of services that is needed by the Palestinian people in Gaza.
Is the Palestinian Authority standing behind reports that ISIS is operating inside the Gaza Strip?
Well, I wonder, is that really true? I don't think that's really true. There are rumors that, there are maybe sympathizers with ISIS in Gaza, the way that we have seen sympathizers with ISIS in most of the European countries. But, we are taking this issue seriously, and we are taking all preventive measures in order to prevent any kind of situation to emerge in that nature.
Thank you, Minister, for your time today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Chinese smartphone maker Xiaomi says it's planning to increase its footprint in the U.S. market. A move is seen by many as an attempt to remove its image of being an imitator of U.S. smartphone maker Apple. Our Kim Ji-yeon tells us more.
Chinese smartphone maker Xiaomi announced plans Thursday in San Francisco to advance into the U.S. market. Within a few months, it's opening an online shop for U.S. consumers with smartphone accessories, including headphones and high-capacity batteries. But Xiaomi says it's taking baby steps, adding the company is not planning to launch phones in the U.S. anytime soon. Xiaomi's Vice President Hugo Borra says it's trying to gradually raise its brand awareness in the U.S. market. The move is seen as an attempt to move away from the idea that it's a Chinese copycat version of Apple. Borra quickly dispelled concerns of intellectual property lawsuits, a factor that's been blamed for keeping Xiaomi out of the U.S. market. He says hundreds of patent applications are being filed to deal with IP concerns, particularly those related to industrial design. Borra also pointed to other factors such as software and hardware localization and after-sales service as challenges that Xiaomi is focusing on. Xiaomi elbowed past Apple and Korea-based Samsung Electronics in China last year, only 3 years after selling its first smartphone. Based on the Android operating system, Xiaomi's phones boast high quality but cost less than their rivals. Xiaomi is currently valued at $45 billion. The company sold 61 million phones last year, tripling its sales from the previous year. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
The Korean Air nut rage incident was not the first involving chaebol members, but this one had a different ending. The former vice president of Korean Air received a stronger punishment than similar previous cases. Our Shin Se-min tells us why.
The so-called nut rage incident of Korean Air VP Cho Hyun-ah isn't the first time that Korean chaebol has been in the spotlight. Korean conglomerate families and executives of other major corporations are often seen abusing their power. Back in 2013, an executive of leading Korean steelmaker POSCO assaulted a flight attendant, hitting her in the face with a magazine on a plane bound for Los Angeles. He was complaining about his undercooked instant noodles, and he was removed from his post. In another incident on an airplane, the former president of Taegwang Industry boarded drunk, causing a stir on his domestic flight and delayed the departure for over an hour. He was sentenced to 120 hours of community service, but only served 6 months in prison. But something about the nut rage case was different. One experienced lawyer says the case drew extra attention because of the public outcry against conglomerates and their privileges.
Cho Hyun-ah's nut rage could have resulted in no jail time, but the public sentiment seemed to influence the court's ruling, and they gave her an actual prison sentence. The public's hostile view of chaebol families, privileged, with an easy life coming from wealthy parents, was loud and clear this time.
He added that the case could prove to be significant because it could impact the way the court treats chaebol families and how the families behave in public. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Korea's low birth rate and aging population are set to take a heavy toll on the national pension system. The National Pension Research Institute says that by the year 2060, the number of pension beneficiaries is expected to exceed that of subscribers who are paying into the fund. This means one subscriber would be supporting more than one beneficiary. 14% of Korea's total population will be over the age of 65 within 2 years, and in 10 years' time, their numbers will reach over 20%. Well, it's not just the hardware of Korean television sets wowing viewers around the world. Audiences have been lapping up Korean television shows and movies, and now content creators are increasingly turning here to see what makes it all work. Connie Lee has more on how directors from abroad are looking to Korea for inspiration.
It's one of the major cultural exports pumped out of Korea. Korean TV shows, more simply known as K-dramas, are becoming a source of inspiration for TV producers outside of the country.
I really believe that Korea is the next frontier.
The next frontier?
That's why I'm here. One of the reasons we came is we've already optioned a number of formats, Korean formats.
Marty Alderstein, a top producer of the popular American TV series Prison Break and Last Man Standing, is now in Seoul, and he's on the lookout. At the Content Insight seminar hosted by the Korea Creative Content Agency, he and other industry leaders spoke on what really makes for good TV.
What people want to watch are characters and storytelling. One of the Israeli channels told me that Korean soap operas sell really well in Israel, and that sort of piqued my interest. I couldn't figure out why, and then I understood because of the strong storylines and the attractiveness of the people, and they sell very well around the world.
Exports of Korean TV content have been steadily increasing in recent years, with about 24 countries on the receiving end. And now there looks to be greater potential for continued growth, with more show producers looking abroad for the best story ideas.
It's happening all the time right now. It's kind of all the rage.
John David Coles, who directed hit shows like Sex and the City and most currently House of Cards, credits his own success to strong storylines that are culturally transcendent.
Because at the heart is a simple, strong premise. That's a story, really, not a complicated plot.
Connie Lee, Arirang News.
5 years ago, new pieces of movable metal type were discovered by a professor here in Korea who claimed they were the world's oldest. Questions over their authenticity remain, however, but experts are planning on a final investigation to lay the questions to rest once and for all. Here's our Son Jung-in with the story.
The world's oldest movable metal type is from Korea, but it may be different from what was previously known. Nam Geun-hye, a professor of bibliography at Gyeongbuk National University, discovered new pieces of movable metal type in 2010, but since then it has been at the center of an investigation into its authenticity. The National Research Institute of Cultural Heritage recently said they had concluded that the type and the book printed from it, called Jungdo Gaja, is authentic. The institute says it was presumed to have been printed during the Goryeo dynasty between 1033 and 1155, which is hundreds of years earlier than what was previously known to be the oldest metal type print, 직지 신체 요절, as confirmed by UNESCO. A separate investigative team at the Cultural Heritage Administration said they will launch their own investigation with the aim of designating the relics as national cultural property. If approved, Jungdo Gaja would be the world's oldest movable metal type, a highly significant cultural achievement. But it certainly won't be easy. For one thing, the members of the Cultural Heritage Administration have set terms that end in April, so the investigation is likely to be postponed until the new members take over. And questions still remain, as the team that verified the type as authentic includes Professor Nam, the man who discovered the pieces. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
The UN Security Council has passed a resolution to stem the flow of money into terrorist organizations around the world.
With more, we turn to Paul Yee at the News Center. Paul, militant groups such as the Islamic State terrorist group have a major network of financial support to fuel acts of terrorism. We saw earlier reports of IS setting up a bank and even its own currency in Iraq. What does the UN hope to accomplish with this resolution?
Well, the resolution, which was led by Russia, is seeking an effective way of choking off illegal earnings. That means addressing revenue streams from three main sources: black market oil, Syrian antiquities, and ransoms paid for hostages. All the Council's 15 member states voted unanimously to adopt the resolution that targets both the extremist group calling itself Islamic State and Syria's al-Nusra Front. The Council warned any nation caught doing business with these terrorist groups would face a wide range of sanctions.
We believe this is the type of case which clearly shows the need for the use of collective efforts to resolve issues we are facing. Having adopted Resolution 2199, it took yet another very important step in suppressing the funding of terrorists first and foremost as a result of the illegal trafficking of oil.
November report estimates that IS made roughly $1 million a day from selling stolen oil, though U.S. officials believe that figure has fallen significantly. The UN resolution also urged countries to choose not to pay ransoms, as the world body estimates the militant group raises more than $100,000 per day from such payments. And shifting to the U.S., President Obama will sign an executive order to bolster national security against cyber attacks. He's expected to make the announcement during an address at a cybersecurity conference being held in the heart of Silicon Valley on this Friday. The order will direct government bodies and private companies to share more information with each other on cyber threats, as well as lay the groundwork for a new federal agency to tackle cyber terrorism. The summit at Stanford will also set the stage for talks between Obama and leading technology executives, including Apple CEO Tim Cook. They're expected to press the administration for reforms to security and surveillance policies and stronger data encryption standards to better protect user privacy. And turning to Taiwan, search teams there have found the body of the last missing victim from the passenger jet that crash-landed into a river last week. Aviation officials said this victim was a male tourist from mainland China. He was reportedly still strapped to his seat when his body was found 3 kilometers from the crash site in the Kulong River. That brings the confirmed death toll to 43. The Trans-Asia Airways flight was carrying 58 passengers and crew when it crashed on February 4th. Initial data from the flight recorders indicated the aircraft had lost power to one of its engines just after lifting off from Taipei's downtown airport. And finally, the European Central Bank has raised its emergency liquidity assistance to banks in Greece. According to industry sources, the ceiling was raised by 5 billion euros, or about $5.7 billion to 65 billion euros. This as Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras took his new government's debt relief plan to an EU summit in Brussels. He said he was confident that a deal could be brokered in time before the current bailout agreement expires at the end of this month. Eurogroup chairman, however, Jeroen Dijsselbloem, said he was more cautious than hopeful. Negotiations continue to hit a roadblock as Athens remains fiercely opposed to implementing reforms that intensify austerity, a condition that its creditors say must be met. Greek officials and EU finance ministers are slated to hold another round of talks on Monday to resolve the country's debt crisis. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here next week.
Hello everyone, I'm Stephen Che with the Sports Brief. Starting with figure skating. Day 2 of the Four Continents Championships had the ladies take the ice for the short program. They showed off their grace and elegance through their routines, a contrast to the more powerful movements of the men. And after 19 performances, Japan's Satoko Miyahara was at first with a score of 64.84 ahead of Gracie Gold and Rika Hongo. For the Koreans, Park So-yeon finished the highest at 10th, scoring 53.47, with Kim Hae-jin trailing at 11th and Choi Song-ju down at 15th. The competition continues through the weekend with the ladies' free skate on Sunday. Moving on, Son Yeon-jae has pulled out of the Moscow Grand Prix of Rhythmic Gymnastics, delaying the start of her season. The 20-year-old has been working on a new program, but she and her coach decided she wasn't ready to compete just yet. After finishing 6th overall with 3 bronze medals last year in Moscow, hopes were high that she would place even higher this year. But it'll have to wait until her next scheduled start late next month. Over to Friday's KBL action. The first of the doubleheader takes us to Jeonju. The struggling KCC Aegis put up a fight against the Mobis Phoebus, but Mobis was clutch down the stretch. Ratliff had a big night, but Moon was the hero with the last-second buzzer beater for the win. Meanwhile, the Dongbu Promi extended their streak to 5 wins as they took down the Goyang Orions. Veteran Kim Ju-sung was the key with a team-high 20 points. Finally, the 2015 NBA All-Star Weekend is here. Going on in New York City, the festivities kick off Friday. The New York Knicks and Brooklyn Nets are co-hosting the event spread across the Barclays Center and Madison Square Garden. There's a lot in store for the fans, namely the popular three-point shootout and dunk contest on Saturday. But the main event is the All-Star Game on Sunday at MSG, where the Stars are sure to put on a fast-paced, high-scoring spectacle. And that wraps it up for sports. Your weather's up next. Have a good night.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with the Weather Outlook. We are wrapping up the week under clear and bright skies, but similar conditions will continue through tomorrow. But microdust index may hit the bad range again for the capital regions. And the air is getting drier by the day. In fact, dry weather advisories have been extended to more regions, and humidity levels in Gyeongsangnam-do province has dipped to as low as 19%. On the bright side, expect conditions to ease up by tomorrow afternoon due to warm air moving in from the west, and daytime highs here in the capital should reach up to 9. On Sunday, nationwide rainfall is in the forecast starting in the evening and lasting through Monday, which could possibly continue through Tuesday for Gangwon-do province. That's all I have for you now, and back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Bo-kyung, and that's primetime news for this Friday. Thanks for watching. I'm Kang Chery.
And I'm Sean Lim. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.